Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. Guess what? I just went to an amazing performance, a one-man show in Harlem, in my neighborhood at First Corinthians Baptist Church, and a different location for what I normally would see maybe off Broadway or occasionally on Broadway. An incredible performance by a man who's been around for a minute doing great work, and he is our guest today. So let me tell you, he is Daniel Koa Beaty, an award-winning actor, singer, and writer whose artistry has captivated audiences worldwide. Known for his critically acclaimed plays such as Through the Night, Emergency, Mr. Joy, Breath and Imagination, and The Tallest Tree in the Forest, Paul Robeson, Beaty has showcased his powerful storytelling at venues from the Public Theater to the White House. Yes, the White House. His talent has garnered numerous accolades, including Obie Award, 5 NAACP Theater Awards, 5 Adelco Awards for Excellence in Black Theater. And in addition to his stage work, he has made significant contributions to television, writing for acclaimed shows such as The Good Fight, remember that one? Your Honor, Law and Order, and Supergirl. A graduate of Yale University and the American Conservatory Theater, Daniel founded the I Dream movement, a coalition of artists and activists dedicated to social justice and healing through the arts. So important. His documentary, Behind the Glass, examines the impact of mass incarceration on families, and his viral poem, Knock Knock, has inspired millions, becoming a beloved children's book. His memoir, Transforming Pain to Power, along with upcoming works like the children's book, Future Ancestor, and his second memoir, Love Warrior, further highlight his diverse talents. Currently an artist in residence at Arts Emerson in Boston, Beaty continues to inspire with his unwavering passion, and we are so honored to have him here today to talk with us on Dreamleapers. Please join me in welcoming Daniel Koa Beaty.
Thank you, Harriet, for that lovely.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for joining us. My show is called Dreamleapers. It's all about, I talk to people who are living their dreams, who have accessed and activated their dreams with the hope that people who are tuned in will be so inspired that they don't want to be you. They want to be fully themselves because they see somebody doing that.
Beautiful.
And I have been aware of you and your work for a long time. And to see you perform in my neighborhood was like, okay, he's home. And you've been a
Absolutely.
member of that church for a long time. Is that right?
Absolutely. Even when I was living in LA for a long time, I was still a member and tuning in for services. And I'm a Harlem resident myself, so it was beautiful to perform for the community.
Speaking of First Corinthians Baptist Church, just for one more moment. So the leader of the church, Walren, has been there for 20 years. So you all were acknowledging him. He has really been a force in the community, especially bringing younger people into church. And as you probably know, Daniel, throughout the country, church congregations are dwindling. And
Absolutely.
the congregation there is robust. What is it about FCBC that becomes this beacon for so many people?
I believe it's a few factors. One is definitely the realness of the leadership, and that is our pastor, Mike Walren Jr., as well as the First Lady, Pastor Lakeisha, who also is the president of a seminary. They're just real, honest people, loving people. And I think the other part of it is the commitment to service. We live, we love, we serve. That's the message of the church. That's our motto. We recite it every Sunday, and we implement it in real action in terms of outreach to the community in real ways like food and breakfast before school. We even have a situation where we have people donate clothes, gently used clothes, news clothes, and people who need them can come in, and it's set up like a store. So there's a lot of humanity in the giving. And it's just a constant narrative of making our love as Christians real with our action.
I love that. And I didn't know about the clothes. So I'm bringing some stuff to y'all.
Great.
And I just have to tell you one more thing, because the connection to the church for me personally is so interesting. When my daughter was young, and the woman who helped me to take care of her when she was from birth to 7, when she left us, I was looking for somebody to help. And the person who was recommended, I would never in a million years think that I would bring a man into our family, to take care of our young child. But he was recommended by someone who's like family to us. And she said, before you say no, talk to him and talk to his recommendations. And he was a leader of young people in your church.
Amazing.
The references were like, he is the best. He is the best. He worked with us for 3 or 4 years. And Daniel, all of the mothers of sons were like, you got to give him to us. It's not fair. You don't need a Manny. You don't need a Manny. We need him. So, I mean, it's whatever it is really working. Because, it's service in action.
Yes.
It's trust and belief that the folks are walking the talk.
Yeah.
And so I was very pleased to be immersed in that space and also in your work. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah. So you first of all, a one-man show is not an easy thing to pull off. You're singing, you are performing. And there's one piece which you open with where you have multiple personalities that you inhabit. How do you switch like that from one being into another? Because it's everything. It's the intonation, the voice, your physicality, boom, boom, boom. How do you do that?
Well, so I've done a lot of training, which is a big part of it: physical training, vocal training, acting training. And I always say that I have a very clear understanding of my internal landscape. And when I create characters, I really start from a place of authenticity and truth. And whether it's the voice, the body, the emotional basis they come from, it's all about truth. And then once I find something that feels truth, it lives with me and I'm able to go back to it instantly. And then on a deeper level, I have a core belief that we're all connected, that there is a core energy, a core vibration that connects us all. I call it God, I call it love, I call it spirit. And when I activate from that place, I believe magic is possible and transformation is possible because I'm rooted in a place that connects us all.
I see that as I witness you in your performance. And there's another thing, especially with these different personalities, no judgment. Because you get the girl from the hood, like, I don't even know whether she was cracking gum, but it felt like she was cracking gum. She's with her grandmother,
the
soul sister from the South, and her boyfriend. I'm not even quite sure. I don't even know what to make of him. But you inhabit these characters, you bring them to life for us fully without judging them. And so often people do judge us, all of us, based upon whatever that persona is that we offer. Even when you, for example, you have a character who is sort of the uptight, the uppity educated Negro who gets judged too.
Right.
And tell us about inhabiting the characters, really bringing forth that truth and not judging, because it's so easy to judge just based on however you grew up, whatever your values were.
Yeah, I think, again, it's the core word for me is love. And I have a genuine love for our people. And I have a genuine love for humanity. And what I realize is that we're all many things, right? We all have contradictions. We all have places where we're fully in our light, and we all have places where we're evolving and becoming. And when I create characters, I don't portray a character unless I can find the love in who that character is. And that, I think, allows me to not come from judgment. Now, I do have a lot of comedy in the work that I do. So, and I work at the level of archetypes. One could think the word stereotype. And I think stereotype is different because it's not necessarily looking for the deeper humanity or the contradictions, but archetype, there are archetypes, and you named some of them even in that conversation: the uppity Negro, the girl from the hood, the Southern grandmother. And I use these archetypes as a place to enter, but then I intentionally deconstruct them.
Mm.
So often with a character, you'll think you know exactly who the character is. And so you see this uppity Negro, and he's talking, and he's got the voice, and he's talking about being in corporate America. But what he's actually saying is that I'm a Black man, and I have full value and full humanity. And I don't want you to just be seeing me as a Black man. I want you to be seeing me in my full humanity. Which is an interesting angle that we don't hear a lot of times, but this is one that he has to point to make in the light of slavery and the slave ship that arises in front of the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, that's a powerful image that you bring forth. And interesting in these times, right before an election,
Yes.
when some might say that slave ship is showing its face again. What
Absolutely.
what do you want people to think when they leave a performance of yours?
The main thing that I want people to feel is that they're not alone and that we have reason to hope. There are so many factors that are trying to separate and divide us. Not only does it separate and divide us along race, class, politics, but it sometimes separates us from our own sense of wellness, our own sense of safety, our own sense of hope. And so these experiences where I portray a variety of different characters and talk about even some of my own personal challenges in the context of our larger challenges, the intent is for people to realize, oh, he's going through some of the things that I'm going through, or he's survived or overcome some of the things that I'm currently dealing with, or that maybe I've overcome, so I can remember who I really am and not be limited by these narratives of separation and hopelessness that are all over the place.
You have, as a one-man show, very naturally, the Black male is centered in your presentation. Black men have been both strong and in peril since the beginning of this country, for sure.
Mhm.
And even now in 2024, a Black man can walk down the street and still get shot just because he's a Black man,
Mhm.
and with no repercussions.
Right.
Unfortunately, that is still true. What do you want Black men to think about themselves and their power and their humanity, and how do you believe you reflect that in your work?
Absolutely. What I want Black men to believe, it's actually core to what I want us all to believe, is that we are birthed from creation. We are birthed from the energy that creates worlds. We are one with God. That is the truth of who we are. And what I also have come to understand at this point in my life is that life is not about the elimination or the absence of pain. It's about what we do with that pain and how it can transform us, how it can expand not only our humanity, but our spirit nature. The Bible says if you suffer with him, you reign with him. And I think, one of the reasons why Black folks have such power, and then speaking specifically to your question of Black men, our strength, our power, our swag, the thing that makes people be attracted to us and admire us, it is because of our continuing to get up, our continuing to try, our continuing to strive in the midst of so much opposition and so much pain. And there has been a lie told about who we are as Black men, intentionally, systemically, perpetually. And so much of what I intend to do is to bring truth to the lie. There are Black men being fathers and husbands and teachers and preachers and doctors and lawyers and presidents. And
Yep.
that is the truth of who we are as much as any of the other narratives. And for those narratives of destruction, prison, addiction, those are systemic challenges that have been intentionally perpetuated among up on our people to try to suppress the greatness that we are. That's the truth.
The truth, according to Daniel Koa Beaty. This is, I love it. This is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. I hope that you are enjoying this conversation as much as I am. The performer, writer, creator, the man who has the one-man show that you're like, woo, Daniel Koa Beaty is here with us today. So Daniel, as you speak in such uplifting terms, you also are very open and vulnerable in your storytelling.
Yes.
And that includes sharing tragedies surrounding your father and your brother.
Mm.
And I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about your background and how, out of some pretty extreme experiences, you are this man of strength and light today.
Absolutely. I'm very transparent about my personal story. The Bible says, we overcome by the power of our testimony. And then just on another level, with social media and the world right now, people a lot of times like to just put forward their best foot, their best look, the moments that are the brightest and the best, which, those moments are to be celebrated, but it can sometimes create the illusion that life is picture perfect for some of us, when the reality is that I don't know anybody that does not go through some real stuff at some point.
Truly.
So my brilliant father and brother, who I unfortunately lost both of them during COVID, both battled addiction and incarceration. My father was arrested 58 times over the course of his life, battling an addiction to heroin, and also sold drugs for a significant portion of his life in my early years. My older brother came home from the Marine Corps addicted to crack cocaine, and spent time in and out of prison. And in the midst of both their absence and their presence, I experienced sexual and physical abuse as a child. And I had all of these narratives created by this trauma of being unloved, of being unworthy, of feeling that my destiny was going to be a repetition of the most challenged parts of my brother and father's life. And I personally went to achievement. I went to being the good kid, being a straight A student. And then I learned about Dr. King early on and started trying to make speeches like him. And that got, got me all the way to Yale University in the top of my class there. But what I realized ultimately, which I talk about in Love Warrior, my show, is that achievement does not equal wellness. And
wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, achievement does not equal wellness. And that even those like my father and my brother, who on the surface seem like models to avoid, or seem like they got it wrong, or they made the mistakes in life, what I understand at this season is that these men too are heroes. And these men too had a brilliance that was constantly attacked, constantly challenged. And sometimes we don't think about the sensitivity of Black men. We think about the strength, but we don't think about the way their hearts hurt and the way they feel disappointed by the challenges of life. And we see those disappointments come out sometimes in addiction, in going away because you feel like you're not able to be the man your family needs, in committing the crime so you can pay for the things you and your family needs. There's a bigger story. And at this season, the understanding of that bigger story challenges me to go deeper and deeper into my own healing so that I'm well enough to tell the true story.
Another broadcast that I do every week is Dreamleapers Inspiration. It's a half-hour live engagement that I started during COVID to just get us in alignment on tapping into that inner space of health and wellness and love to help us through the week. And this week, this is why I'm telling this to you.
Yes.
And I find a quote that will help us along the way. And this is the quote that I used this week. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about.
There you go.
This is from a woman, I don't know her, but her name is Wendy Mass. I thought that was so powerful. So I'm going to say it again and I want us to talk about it. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about.
That's,
Isn't
it's so brilliant. And it's so on point, especially during these times. And, Harriet, with a thought that came to my mind is that includes ourselves. Be
absolutely.
kind to ourselves.
Starting with. And when you talked about achievement, because look, we all figure out a way to survive.
Yeah,
And so you saw what was happening in your family. You're like,
yeah,
that cannot happen to me.
yeah,
I have to do something different. And thank God you did.
yeah.
And also that you recognize, yeah, achievement takes you to a particular place, but there are other places where you have to travel to as well in order to be whole. That facade of, like, look, I was a straight A student too, so I
Mm,
know that
yeah,
facade of perfection and excellence, while it is helpful, it can be a facade. And then
absolutely.
what's going on below the surface? And Daniel, we know there are so many people today
Yeah.
who look a particular way, and if you just scratch the surface, you find that they're depressed, they are suicidal, they are uh, unemployed, they're about to lose their home, they're about to lose their family. I mean, like real huge challenges.
Mm.
You cannot tell by looking at them.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, just you talk about a duality, Harriet, and what you're saying that I think is so powerful. You can imagine from what I shared about my own up,
Yes,
what my mother, as the matriarch, raising us by herself, dealt with. And what is interesting about that to me is that she always presented with such beauty. She always was very cognizant about how we spoke and how we presented ourselves in the world. And a part of me as a kid looked at it sort of side eye, like, you faking. But what I realized is that, well, sometimes you fake it till you make it.
right.
Sometimes you do. And it's also their version of speak those things that are not as though they were, right? You gotta pretend to be it until you are. But the other side of that, which is so important, is there's got to be a space of the true excavation. There's got to be a space where you tell yourself the truth, even if you're lying to everybody else to make it through the day, you know? And for me, it is a daily spiritual practice. It's a daily time of meditation and prayer. It's the essential time to go inside and be with yourself, the deepest part of yourself, which I believe for me is also God, also
I believe
spirit.
that.
Yeah. So that you can say, where am I really?
Mm.
And even if you gotta, put on the tie, put on the wig, do whatever you do to get out the house and get it through the
Sometimes
day.
that's the armor, right?
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
protection that we put on. So someone I talk about very often is my mother as well, who
Mm.
is 94. She'll be 95 in a month. God
Yes, sir.
bless her.
God bless her.
And very recently, she had a fall. She didn't break anything, thank God, but she was in the hospital for about a week, and I was with her. And I was telling one of my sisters about just how every single person who came into her room, Daniel, even like the person who's putting the needle in to get blood, and she's old and she has what they call rolling veins. So it
Mm.
hurt trying to get to the vein. She's crying out in pain in 1 second. And then the moment that they're done, she's like, thank you so much. Thank you for making the effort. Thank you for finding the vein. She had been crying. Every time a person came in her room, she thanked them. The person who swept the floor, the person who brought her the food and took it away. And so my sister Susan said, she's teaching us how to be gracious in our old age.
Mm.
And so I countered, she's been teaching us how to be gracious in our life since we were born, and my sister Stephanie, so I'm the middle one. I was there for this moment. My sister Stephanie is there all the time because she lives in Baltimore where my mother is. But like the three of us, the three girls, we are watching under the most dire of circumstances what grace looks like.
Mm.
And when you treat people with love, as you're talking about, what happens? You get love back. You get grace back.
Yeah.
And and you can have pain and grace at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a choice, and it's a I keep coming back to the having it for ourselves as well, because what
Yes.
I find for myself is that when life is life and I feel the most tight, and I feel the most, my name Koa means warrior, brave one. I feel the most wanting to war. Um, and I'm not, my intention is love, but I have moments when I'm annoyed and
Sure.
I'm agitated. And what I ultimately find out is that there is some self-comfort that I'm needing in those moments. There is it's gonna be all right. You got this. You're doing well. It's, it's that encouragement. A lot of us don't have somebody encouraging us, to letting us know that we're doing well. Like, life is challenging. And sometimes just getting up and making it through the day is an accomplishment. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
And, sometimes I think we rely on other people for things that they can't give us or that they can't give us at the moment. So back to this quote.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I've certainly had this when I wanted something from someone who loves me, who I love, but they didn't have the capacity at that moment. And that was bad. Well, why
Absolutely.
can't you do this for me? Well, they're going through their own S,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And so, but
Exactly.
at first you're like, well, you get high and
Exactly.
mighty.
Exactly.
And then when you
Exactly.
when you when you when you, pull it back in and say, but I have to love me first.
Yeah.
I have to
That's
take care of me first. I cannot rely on any other human being on the planet to take care of me better than I am gonna take care of myself. Because if I do, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. One of my strategies for that is, when I'm going through something, I say to myself, how would I talk to someone I love deeply who's going through this very same thing?
Ooh, that's a
And I
good
give myself the same encouragement that I would give someone that I love deeply, because we do have that capacity for ourselves. What it requires is first taking that time to be present, though, with where we really are. Yeah.
You talked about therapy in your performance,
Yeah.
and I fully believe in therapy and am working with a therapist right now. And that perfectionist part, she's like, well, instead of being so critical of yourself, could
Yeah.
you consider being curious? Like, well,
Mhm.
why did you do X or Y? Why did you make this choice? Could you look at yourself like that
Mhm.
rather than I can't believe
Mhm.
whatever, dot, 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 which is a fascinating approach
Yeah.
to the same exact thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I hear in that is that, okay, so in a capitalist culture, in Western culture, we often like look for results or
Mm.
destination. But I don't think that life is about a result or a destination. I think it's a journey. And I think it's a journey towards our oneness with divinity, our
Mm.
oneness with our spirit nature. And so these places where we want to criticize ourselves, and the world is, capitalist culture is designed for that, right? You
Yes,
need to have
indeed.
something wrong with you for us to create a product to sell you so we can make money.
Yes. More, 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 please.
You know what I mean? And so, so I just think that's the trick. So I think you're making a really powerful
No,
point.
it's really something. Hey guys, this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. We are having a very deep conversation with Daniel Koa Beaty. He is just keeping it real and helping us to consider what is life like when you touch your own spirit, your own soul, and you cultivate that.
Mhm.
I would love for you to give us a little snippet of one of your performances. I want people to experience you. Would you do that for us?
Absolutely do it. This is a piece that many of you may have heard before. It cycled around social media many times. And it is about my own story and journey with my father. As a boy, I shared a game with my father. We played it every morning till I was 3. He would knock on my door, and I would pretend to be asleep till he got right next to the bed. Then I would get up and jump into his arms. Good morning, Papa. And my papa, he would tell me that he loved me. We shared a game, knock, knock, until that day when the knock never came. And my mama takes me on a ride past cornfields on this never-ending highway till we reach a place of high, rusty gates. A confused little boy, I enter the building, carried in my mama's arms, knock, knock. We reach a room of windows and brown faces. Behind one of the windows sits my father. I jump out of my mama's arms and run joyously towards my papa's, only to be confronted by this window. I knock, knock, trying to break through the glass, trying to get to my father. I knock, knock, as my mama pulls me away before my papa even says a word. For years, he's never said a word. And so years later, I write these words for the little boy in me who still awaits his papa's knock. Papa, come home, because I miss you. Miss you waking me up in the mornings and telling me you love me. Papa, come home, because there's things I don't know, and I thought maybe you could teach me how to shave, how to dribble a ball, how to talk to a lady, how to walk like a man. Papa, come home, because I decided a while back I want to be just like you, but I'm forgetting who you are. And years later, that little boy cries, and so I write these words, and I try to heal, and I try to father myself, and I dream up a father who says the words my father did not. Dear son, I'm sorry, I never came home. For every lesson I failed to teach, hear these words. Shave in one direction with strong, deliberate strokes to avoid irritation. Dribble the page with the brilliance of your ballpoint pen. Walk like a god, and you will know the God in you. No longer will I be there to knock on your doors. You must learn to knock for yourself. Knock, knock down doors of racism and poverty that I could not. Knock, knock on doors of opportunity for the lost brilliance of the Black men who crowd these cells. Knock, knock with diligence for the sake of your children. Knock, knock for me. For as long as you are free, these prison gates cannot contain my spirit. The best of me still lives in you. Knock, knock with the knowledge that you are my son, but you are not my choices. Yes, we are our Father's sons and daughters, but we are not their choices. For despite their absences, we are still here, still alive, still breathing, with the power to change this world, one little boy and girl at a time. Knock, knock. Who's there? We are.
Bravo. Wow, that sent chills. Wow. Really powerful on so many levels. Was your father able to experience this piece?
Yes, he did. My father was a comedian. He was very funny. And the first time he saw the piece, he had just gotten out of prison after 8.5 years. And he said, "Ooh, you did me dirty."
So the fact that you could share that with him,
Yeah.
you could share, well, that he had humor probably has everything to do with you being able to
Yeah.
talk to him. But how did you all talk about his life, his addiction, his incarceration? Did you have real conversations about that?
Mm. It actually started me being a student at Yale University, and really a lot of the pain that I experienced as a child coming to the forefront. It's like a wound that was pussing over. And here I was achieving, but I was just really in a lot of pain. And I started writing him letters back and forth to prison. And in these letters, I experienced a depth of love and clarity about who I was in his eyes. He would say things to me like, "There is nothing wrong with you. You're beautiful and you're wonderful." And then he would also give me strategies about how to make it through life. I remember he said, "It's not about where you are in life; it's who you believe you are." And he gave me an example. He says, "There is a beggar, and then there's a beggar with royal bearing." You
Ooh.
He talked to me at that level. My father had a genius IQ. He graduated summa cum laude with a degree in English while supporting a $300 a day heroin habit. Just
Ooh.
fiercely brilliant man. But my father grew up at a time before integration, and in his community, um, there was the doctors and the lawyers, but there were also the gangsters, and there was also his mom who had come from wealth but fell in love with a guy from the streets, was disowned, and ended up being a domestic. And he would go to her house where she was working after school, and he would see this very white family and all they had. And then across the street lived a gangster who was a black man, and his children had the same things. And my father made up in his mind at that age that the way he was going to have what the other wealthy white people had was to pursue crime.
Wow.
And then his own father was battling addiction, no doubt from a legacy of brokenness that could be directly connected to slavery. And he was an addict, and his mom would make the money as a domestic. He would beat her up, and then he would go spend the money, getting drunk. And so my father, at 10 years old, started shining shoes, in that same area where my father was getting drunk so that the family would have money, right? So that's why I say there's such deeper stories. And so even if you have a father, a grandfather, a mother who's an addict, and, your heart hurts because of that, or you think you're less because of that, please know there's a bigger story. We were a people. I tell the story in the show. My great-great-grandmother was a princess when she was captured in 1816. And then I came from a family from that, in slavery, poverty, and then addiction and incarceration. That's not who we are. That's who the trauma tried to make us become. But that is not who we are.
You even talk about post-traumatic slave disorder, which there's a
Dr. Joyce DeGruy. Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. I was trying to remember her name, that she penned that and really spent years studying what that means. You've included it and the concept of it in your work. For people who may not know what post-traumatic slave disorder is, can you share what your understanding of it is?
Yeah, my understanding is it's basically the PTSD that we inherit as a people from the legacy of slavery in this country. And we can think of it a couple of ways. We can think of epigenetics, which is how our very DNA can pass on trauma. This is a whole study that is a very rich school of study. But then we can think about it also in terms of the systemic barriers that we face, in terms of poverty, in terms of the brokenness in our homes, the fact that many of us pass on the inheritance, not only of finance, but of wellness, because of the brokenness we've had to carry from generation to generation. And I say in the show, many of us are walking around with undiagnosed PTSD, and post-traumatic slave syndrome, post-traumatic slave disorders are ways of defining that.
Well, and you mentioned the addiction to illegal substances, well, and alcohol, like heroin, crack cocaine, and alcohol. And these are things where people judge folks who have those addictions. There are also all of these pharmaceuticals that people are now addicted to. It's very similar.
Very similar.
There's a different kind of judgment that often is placed upon people depending upon what the substance is, but it certainly points to a sickness in our culture that so many people cannot live without something that alters their mind and their being. In your work, you challenge a lot of these things, and it's clear you're looking to help people see ways that they can claim the fullness of them without a crutch.
Right.
You have had to work through this yourself. I mean, with the challenges in your family, what are the recommendations that you can make to people who right now, somebody tuned in, struggling, doesn't know what to do, maybe ashamed to ask for help? What do you recommend?
My first major recommendation is a daily spiritual practice. Whatever that is for you, do not get out of that bed without taking some time to get in touch with yourself. Remember that you are at your core possibility. I mean, you are at your core light and love and hope. That is the truth. And we have to know that for ourselves. If you got to go on YouTube and put meditation in and go through a bunch of videos to see which one speaks to you, if you're a believer, you read some scriptures. The reality is that we are what we ingest, not just what we eat, but what we listen to, who we talk to. You have to intentionally, in a world that's constantly saying we're not enough, you need this thing to be better, or media that's constantly perpetuating fear, we have to intentionally interrupt that with feeding ourselves things that are positive. Listen to a sermon, listen to a motivational speech, listen to some music that's speaking hope into you, listen to some India.Arie over Nicki Minaj sometimes, right? You know what I mean? And there's a Nicki Minaj moment. I'm not hating on her. There's always that moment, but somebody like India is intentionally trying to feed your soul. You know what I mean? We got to be cognizant of how we're feeding ourselves. And that's the place to start. And then the other thing is nobody gets through it alone. Like none of us does. And the church has hurt so many people. Believe me, I know I've walked out of churches brokenhearted, but there are places like FCBC. Find community. Like when I've been at my lowest and I would just want to be in that bed with the covers over my head, the first step is sometimes just letting some light in. And it's not just physical light, it's the light of love. You know what I mean? And that can be small, but it's essential.
I agree with you. One of the things that you said that you suffered, and I really appreciate how transparent you are about
Mhm.
the things that have happened in your life, but you said that as a young person, you suffered sexual abuse.
Yeah.
Really hard to get over
Mhm.
and to find real intimacy if that has been violated, especially as a child.
Mhm.
How were you able to overcome that?
It was a lot of work, to be honest, and a lot of patience. I used to be, before I was able to process the sexual abuse, if I sat next to someone on the subway and their body touched mine, I would go into freeze mode.
Wow.
It was that intense, or even sitting in church and, somebody hugging you and touching you as a kid. Like I was that afraid, but it was just time. I had to get a lot of help and I had to deal with a lot of shame, right?
Of
Because
course.
something that if you don't understand that it's something that happened to you and your body was violated as a child in a moment when your brain and your body were not prepared for that type of of experience. And then I had a lot of challenging experiences in relationship that I had to forgive
Imagine.
myself for, and challenging ways that I even engaged with my own body out of not understanding its worth and understanding my right to my own body. But again, the main thing I want people to understand is that you're not alone and that there are amazing resources out there to help. And we have conversations about beauty all the time. We have conversations about food all the time, but we don't have enough conversations about healing. The journey to heal is a really beautiful, powerful journey. It is the most deep self love journey one can ever go on. And it's a continual journey and it requires patience and a lot of grace with self, but it is essential. Our lives will never be what they can be if we don't take that healing journey.
I love the fact that you say it's a continual journey. Sometimes people think, okay, I did this. I checked off this box. I went to church. I prayed. I
Yeah.
did whatever the thing is that Daniel told me before I get out of bed, I have to meditate. But this thing still happened. And, well, let me let folks know this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. We're talking to Daniel Koa Beaty. We probably want to talk for 2 more hours, but we get a few more minutes. So I'm going to share something. I think I've shared it in this forum before. I'm not even sure, but it's what triggering when things happen in the world, even when you've processed some old pain, it can trigger. So for me, watching the video
Mhm.
of Diddy
Mm.
uh,
Yeah.
beating, kicking Cassie, apart from like I know him, I don't know him in that way.
Mm.
That was shocking too. But watching that,
Mhm.
when I was in college, my college boyfriend, who I thought was like the next Barack Obama, beat the crap out of me just like that.
Mm,
And people saw it and
mm.
didn't help.
Wow.
And it I went through therapy, I dealt with it, I processed it, and then I saw that video and it was on TV over and over and over again, and it brought everything back.
Mhm,
Like, and in particular, why did I let that happen? This is, you know, because we
mhm,
have those questions. And so I wanna say for people, when stuff comes up, even if you've processed it, I have years of spiritual practice, years past that, it
mhm.
came up again, and so we have to have ongoing healing
Absolutely.
and understand that things can come up again, and we have to and the scab comes off the wound.
Mhm. And
And so, Art, I want you to speak in the couple minutes that we have left about how your art and art in general can help people to heal.
absolutely. I just appreciate, Harriet, your transparency as well in sharing that. And I believe that is what art does, right? Art allows us to tell our stories in a way that people can feel them on the mind, heart, soul level. And again, it brings us to the awareness that we're all connected and we're not alone. And what you mentioned about triggers, there's science behind this stuff. When
Yes.
pain happens, it literally goes on a neurotransmitter in the brain. And then we have other experiences like seeing something or other painful things that happen. But what also happens is that if you have enough trauma, your brain becomes addicted to it and you
Ooh.
start to sort for other like experiences. So, what I'm trying to get us to understand is hope is in the now.
Mm.
Love is in the now. God is in the now. And when we meditate, when we breathe, when we take the intentional choice to come into the now, we can interrupt the pain of the past that wants to go into our future. We have the power to choose. We decide. We are the dreamers, and the dream is in the now.
I love that. How can people find you, see your performances? Where do they go?
Please, Daniel Koa Beaty, and that's Beatty with one T for those who are listening, like beat the drum with the Y. It's at Daniel Koa Beaty for Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and I also have a website that's danielkoabeatty.com.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart, soul, art, everything. We appreciate you. This is a time to be real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we so appreciate you going to that safe space of the heart that's
Mhm.
also a vulnerable space to show people how they can do it. So we
Absolutely.
appreciate you. Your work is outstanding, and thank you for sharing a bit of your soul with us today.
Thank you, Harriet. This is a beautiful show, and I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank all of you for joining us. I told you this was going to be a special day. It has been. Daniel Koa Beaty, check him out. You already know what he's going to share with you will open your heart and help you to heal. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.